By way of introduction, what is the internet? The internet is an internet connection between two or more computer networks. What this means is that assuming you have a computer network, this is in Lagos. Meanwhile, a computer network is an interconnection between two or more computers. So when these computer networks communicate with other computer networks, we have what is called the internet. A typical example, if you have a computer network in this one here in Calabar, and it communicates with this one here, this is another computer network in Lagos, this is another one in Ghana, this is another one in Canada, another one in the United States, and another one in Jordan. So when these computer networks communicate with each other, like you can see, it is called the internet. And since this connection is global and it looks like a cobweb, you can call it the World Wide Web. So the World Wide Web is an example of the internet, the most popular example of the internet. It was invented by Tim Berners-Lee in 1994. This is Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the internet from the UK. And then this internet is made of, this World Wide Web is made up of several computer networks which communicate with each other, and there's a particular protocol that is required for communication. Just like when you make any communication, you use a protocol, and that protocol for the internet, for the World Wide Web, is called HTTP. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It is a protocol by which communication is done on the World Wide Web. The World Wide Web contains websites, and a website is a collection of related web pages. So on the World Wide Web, there are millions of web pages, and these web pages are stored on giant computers, on big computers. These big computers are known as web servers. So these web servers is a storage facility for the websites and the web pages that you see online. The computer you use to browse the internet when you're browsing is called the web client. And the web client has a software. That's the software you use in browsing the internet. The application that the client uses as your computer is called web browser. Typical example of web browsers include Mozilla Firefox, Internet Explorer, and Google Chrome. So your web client is your computer, while the web server are those giant computers that the website and web pages are stored. The browser is an application that enables you to make a request to the web server. So normally your web client will make a request, and when that request is made to the server responds. And remember, the protocol that is used for this communication, this request and response, is known as called Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Now, I said there are billions of web pages on the internet. Billions of web pages. How does the web server or the web client knows the particular web page that you want when you're browsing the web? This is what is called the Uniform Resource Locator. Just like the address on the envelope of a letter directs you to a particular house in the real world, the Uniform Resource Locator directs you to a particular resource or a particular web page on the World Wide Web. This is a typical example of a Uniform Resource Locator. http www.webimania.com/opportunities/webdesign.html. So let's look at the structure of a typical Uniform Resource Locator. We have the first part, the HTTP, that is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. That is the protocol for the communication, And then the next part is the domain name, which is www.webimania.com. So the www stands for World Wide Web. Then the domain name, the name of the host is Webimania, while the .com is the extension. And then the other part you see, the opportunities, and the other thing you see is called the path. So in subsequent videos, we are going to look at the different types of URLs. URL could be relative or absolute. Now let's take a look at the extensions. There are different types of extensions. The extensions enable you to know more about the domain name. it gives throws more light on the domain name, what type of domain name the domain is, and with that information you can actually know what kind of websites you will be expecting. So if it's .org, you know you are dealing with an organization, or you're expecting to see an organization related content. If it's .net, it's for networks. If it's .info, information. You could also have geographical based extensions like .co.uk for United Kingdom, .ng for Nigeria, .ca for Canada, .us for the United States, and .biz for business websites, .edu for education, .tv for TV stations. Now, how does the browser display the web page? Every web page, like I said, there are billions of web pages on the World Wide Web. Every web page contains instructions on how to be displayed. So when the browser gets a web page, the browser is going to read those instructions, and the browser is going to now know how to display that particular web page. And these instructions are written in special languages. It's not written in the regular expression, regular English. It's written in a special language that is called HTML, Hypertext Markup Language. Remember, the protocol for communication on the World Wide Web is HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So the universal language whereby these instructions are written is called HTML, Hypertext Markup Language. There are other languages and flavors of HTML, like we have the HTML, dynamic HTML, we have WML, wireless markup language. We have other flavors too, like ASP.NET, Visual Basic Script. We have in MySQL, we have JavaScript that enhances the hypertext markup language, but those things are very, very boring. We're not going to look at them, but just know that every web page contains instructions on how to be displayed, and those instructions are coded in special languages that is universally known as HTML. HTML is the lingua franca of the web. There are other flavors and other languages that these instructions can be written in. Normally, to design a website, you have to open probably a notepad and start typing these instructions like you can see on the screen. But this process is very, very boring. But thank God these days there are special softwares that automatically generates. They are like interpreters that automatically generates these codes for you. So you are now focused on making your website to look beautiful. You're focused on generating content for your website. You're focused on driving traffic to your website. You're focused on converting this traffic, making them do what you want them to do. You're focused on making the sales. You're focused on getting your return on investment. So you don't have to start designing from scratch, except it's absolutely necessary, and I don't see why it would be necessary. So there are softwares like Dreamweaver and Microsoft Expression. These softwares would help you to design websites without having any programming knowledge. And then we also have content management systems like WordPress and Joomla. WordPress and Joomla will automatically generate the HTML, the PHP, the MySQL source codes for you, while you're focused on only the design. There are softwares you can use for squeeze pages like OptimizePress, Unbounce. We also have softwares that you can even use to design Flash websites like Flash CMS. And there are softwares that are hosted as online. We call them software as a service. You pay for them, and you have access to use these softwares like BigCommerce, the one you see on the screen, Wix, Shopify, and most recently the one that is really changing everything when it comes to how web pages are created is Snappy Sites. We'll talk about it later. So briefly, let's look at the web development process. The process of designing a website is actually for descriptive purposes divided into 4. I said for descriptive purposes. You can actually do all of them at the same concurrently, or you can mix it up. Most of them can also be done together. But for descriptive purposes, it's divided into 4 phases. The first phase is the authoring phase. This is when you generate concepts and content for your website. We also have the design phase where you bring your authoring into conception, your concept into conception. And then we have the hosting phase where you host your design, and we have the testing and launching phase. So this is just for descriptive purposes. You can actually start by hosting the site, and then you can now start designing, and then you can be testing at the same time, and you can also be authoring and adding new content, changing concepts. So this is not actually set in stone, but this is for descriptive purposes. The web development process is divided into 4 phases: authoring phase, designing, hosting, and then testing the project. So like I said previously, with the CMS now, you can easily create a website without having any programming knowledge. Now, what is a CMS? A CMS is a content management system. A content management system is a tool that you use to create, organize, and present content in the form of a website. It's used to what? Create, organize, and present content in the form of a website. And what are the elements of a content management system? Every content management system has 2 elements: a CMA, that is content management application, and a CDA, content delivery application. The CMA, content management application, is where you design your site. You are the only one that has access to the CMA, that is content management application. That's where you can add content, you can manage content, you can organize your content, you can do everything. So you are the only one that have access to it. That's the administrator of your website. That's for the CMA. While the CDA, the content delivery application, is the website that people can see. So the CMA is also known as the back end, while the CDA is also known as the front end. So leave all these jargons and all these technical terms I've mentioned. Just know that the CMS has 2 ends: the front end and the back end. And the back end is where only the administrator can access. For you to enter the back end, you require a username and password. That is where you design your site. Then the front end is the site that people can see. So there are 2 ends: the back end and the front end. So all content management systems, they have 2 ends, whether it's Joomla, whether it's WordPress, or Snappy Sites. So there are thousands of content management systems, and then I personally recommend 3 of them. I've used a lot of them, over 50 of them. If you are designing websites, on top of the list is Joomla. It's also WordPress on top of the list too, and it's also Snappy Sites on top of the list. In this training, we are going to do an overview of Joomla. We are also going to have an overview of WordPress, and then we are going to dwell mostly on Snappy Sites, because Snappy Sites is very easy to use and it's cheaper. Joomla and WordPress is actually free, but you have to pay for plugins to really extend the functionality of Joomla. By default, Joomla is actually for organizing content, WordPress is actually for blogging. But for you to actually extend their functionality to create beautiful sites, you have to get third-party plugins and themes. But Snappy Sites come pre-installed with all these third-party plugin and themes. We're going to have a look at them, Joomla and WordPress, and then we're also going to look at Snappy Sites. In the next chapter, we are going to leave all these theoretical, boring jargons and actually start designing our first website. So after all has been said and done, just remember that to design a website these days, all you need is a content management system, and that the content management system has 2 ends: the front end that people can see, and the back end where you design your websites.